souls. Science. Paranormal. Drinks. Three tortured souls. Entertain, educate, recreate, and intoxicate.
What is up?
Woohoo!
How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Well, we have a fourth tortured soul tonight, which is not Taryn.
Taryn's gonna be pissed.
Oh,
Take it up with John. That's fine.
who's that?
Anyway, tonight, Jon Michael is going to join us from Jon Michael Has Questions. John and I were at a Paranormal Research Symposium together August 22nd, and the first half of the show or so, we're going to talk a little bit about that, what happened there, some of the talks, what John talked about, what I talked about, and kind of our general impressions and any other comments that we want to make. And then after that, we're going to jump into what is the difference between evidence and data. And I believe a lot's gone on since, I think, Kenny, you're the one who kind of brought this to our attention, because you were having a debate with some people about what evidence is versus data. And it was looked like an interesting exchange. So that gave us the idea, and we're getting really good at stealing each other's ideas. So I grabbed it and I'm like,
Hell yeah.
sounds like a good show. So here we are tonight. So why don't we start with John first and have John just introduce himself, and then I'll turn it over to Tim and Kenny for any quick opening comments, and we'll dive right into it. So John, please introduce yourself.
I'm John.
Short, sweet, to the point. Next.
I guess what's important for this is I'm a former ghost hunter who slowly turned skeptic over time, and then just one day I was kind of like, I'm a skeptic. When did this happen? And now my main focus, I kind of have two things that I'm doing. Is I'm engaging with skeptics in particular to help them be able to talk with people who identify as believers, and so that way we can communicate our message more effectively, and also hang out with paranormal enthusiasts a whole lot. That's kind of my main thing, just to try to help spread critical thinking and eventually skepticism, but more interested in spreading critical thinking, because I think the skepticism follows if you know how to think critically, my opinion. So that's what I do.
Interesting.
Yes, it is turning into AA for ghost hunters. Good comment. All right. Well, thanks, John.
AA is a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, we'll never quit.
Yeah.
When you're born in Wisconsin, you know what they call AA. Quitters.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, well, thanks, John. Glad you could join us tonight. Tim, what do you got?
Well, I am actually looking really forward to hearing you guys and what it was like at that conference. So that's going to be nice to hear. Data and evidence, it's like we always do when we end up in some shit. I'm trying to be more positive. Challenging conversations with people. We always send the other two a message, and we all have to get in and torture. Just today, Dave send us pictures of the devil's balls. So,
Wow.
I didn't send you pictures of the devil's balls. Come on.
Well, that's what it is, isn't it?
Like it to me.
Yeah. It's a new ghost hunting equipment. So we all had to get in on it. So when evidence and data pulled up, That's an interesting take, and I think we've been through it before, and I think it's well worth going through it again, at least from our perspective. I'm sure that there are very specific definitions and guides to follow, but we'll leave that the very specific papers for Dave.
All right, Kenny.
Uh-oh, Karen's found out.
Quiet.
I see that.
Hide.
So yeah, I am.
Sorry, I tried to put her in her place when she said she was number 4 right out of the gate.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Kenny.
So yeah, I mean, I'm anxious to hear about how the conference. It was the symposium, right?
Yeah, the Paranormal Research Symposium.
Yeah.
Weird.
So I'm curious to hear how that went, and not only what you guys presented, but what you watched from other presenters, maybe. I know Dave and I had a good time last time we did that. It was, let's say, interesting, if they say the least. And then when we get into the data versus evidence thing, that I think that'll be a good discussion, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about well, actually, there's misunderstandings, but it leads to conflating the two. And I think that's the issue. That's the big issue. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Jesus, which one of you is being the suck up? God.
That's Tim. That's totally Tim.
I don't have access to the controls tonight. I don't.
Oh, we all have access all the time. That's why Kenny can let me in and out of the show at the same time.
You mean I could have been walking you guys? Oh shit!
I was like, what? How do I have all the controls? How did that happen?
I don't have not even not been sleeping with a CPAP for like 5 days, but I also got into a wreck and I still showed up specifically because I was like, man, Tim's gonna think I'm the new number 4, and just here you are, throwing me to the curb already. So sad.
You know, there's always an ongoing debate on who the number 4 is, but I think honestly, by default, it's always Taryn. But John just got the role tonight.
We'll fight for it one day.
All right. So the Gettysburg Paranormal Research Symposium, I'll make a couple comments and then I'll turn it over to John, and then obviously Kenny, Tim, if you got stuff you want to ask or jump in, please do. It was August 22nd. It was at the 1863 Inn of Gettysburg, so right in the main strip area. Everything was nice and close by, which was good. Besides the fact that there was a shit ton of kids running around all over the place. They had some traveling soccer tournament or something going on there. Anyway, there was a ton of kids running around, but great location. I was really glad Jen came with me. So she got to hang out with us for the weekend, which was great. I think we've been back to Pennsylvania just a handful of times since we moved from there. And it's always great to be back. We love it out there. It's beautiful. It's great to be back in Gettysburg. So loved it. The symposium was hosted by the Association of Paranormal Study, Alex Metsuo. This is the second year of the symposium, and it sounds like the crowd, from what I understood, the attendance in the crowd grew this year from last year, which is a good sign. They had 3 rooms that were running concurrent sessions, so 2 in the inn and 1 at the orphanage, which I'm really jealous because John got to give his talk in the orphanage, and I'm like, oh, cool building, awesome. It's okay. The inn was pretty cool too, so I enjoyed that. And I'm just kind of giving an overview of what happened here first. 17 talks in 3 different rooms. It was a good group of people. The one thing that made this different, Kenny, even from the Hanover Paracon, there were no vendor tables at all, not allowed. I think they had one table where they're like, well, if you brought a couple things, a book or something, you can throw it down there and you can sell it. But the whole point was not to be talking about and selling stuff. They wanted people to listen to the talks. They wanted people to be engaged. So I thought that was a really, really good thing, actually. It was refreshing to see that. To give a talk there, you had to submit an abstract like you would have to for a professional scientific association meeting or a conference. You actually had very coherently spell out what your research is or what you wanted to talk about, and it had to be supported by citations, literature citations, and then they had a crew of people that would go through it and make a decision, yes or no, if you're going to be granted a spot to speak, which was really nice because I had heard at least there's a couple paracelebs that said basically I'm going to come and give a talk, and because I'm so and so, and it was kind of like, no, you're not. So you still had to go through the process, and if you did, you got a spot. There will be symposium proceedings published. So every talk you have to now write a paper and submit it. And this is an example of, they had last year's proceedings there, so you could buy a copy of it. And I think it's like 280 pages, and I read most of it on the way back. Pretty good. It's nice. So if you weren't able to be there, it's going to probably, this got released, I think, just before the conference this year. So I think it's probably about a year it takes them to get that all together. And it's like herding cats. A lot of people, you got to get them the right papers in the right format and all that stuff. Right. So overall, I really like what Alex is trying to accomplish here. You're looking to make it different than the normal ghost hunting conferences, and you're trying to bring in people who maybe are more data driven, more trying to get they're not just believers. There's all different types of views out there. Jen and I spent most of our time with Jon, of course, Brandon Masulo, which I think you guys are familiar with, and then a few other folks, and it was really good people. We had a good time. Everybody was really welcoming, and it was great. I did not know that the United States has somebody as a spontaneous case committee representative in the U.S. So the Society of Psychical Research, Randy Liebeck, which Brandon introduced me to. I had no idea, but he's kind of the go-to person in the U.S. because the Society of Psychical Research over in Europe, they do get requests and emails from people in the U.S. So they refer him to this guy, and this guy was fascinating. He has all this history of the field, all these books. He's a avid book collector, historical books, all the specialty type books. So it was really cool to talk to him. I thought the side conversations were just as good as the actual conference itself, hanging out with people. There's a whole bunch of topics, and I can cover those later. Then we'll get into my talk and what Jon's talk were, but that's kind of the overview of what happened and what the day was about. So, Jon, anything to add to that for general comments?
Yeah, and I'll tell you too, as a skeptic, I walk in anywhere as skeptical, right? But, going into a paranormal symposium or conference or anything else, I'm always like, oh boy, here we go. And yeah, I will honestly say, I have been to many a paranormal conference, and this was by far, in terms of conversations that were going on, and just professionalism, the best one I've been to by far. In fact, I was talking to Alex, who put on the symposium. She really wants to get a skeptic track going, which I think is kind of cool. So they were extremely open and willing to have me show up, someone that doesn't believe in ghosts, or anything in the paranormal, really. They wanted me to be there. And I appreciated that. And I submitted my paper. And yeah, they were happy to have me. The entire time they encouraged me to come, nothing but encouragement. And everybody that I talked to, it's always fun. Kenny, I'm sure you run into this a lot too, but it's always fun. When you walk in as a skeptic, everyone wants to talk to you. And you would think there are some people who look at you like, oh God, oh, let me get away. But when
everybody wants to talk, but it's not always a good thing.
Right. But it's
security.
Right.
It's
interesting. And I don't know why my experience is different. I don't know if it's because I look like a ghost hunter. I have no idea. But every time I talk to somebody, it goes very well. And so I don't know. Like I said, I don't understand why that is. But there were so many people that gave presentations wanted my input afterwards. There were a lot of really good, for example, Alex's presentation, and I know I'm probably skipping ahead Dave, you said you were
No,
going to
that's
talk about
fine. Go ahead.
presentations.
We have no format here. We know that.
Okay, great. Like Alex's presentation, subtract a few statements, and it could have been at a skeptic camp. I mean, it was a good presentation, like solidly researched. It didn't venture out into the woo. Like it was a good presentation. There are a few that I kind of was like, well, there were more than a few. Like there were several I was kind of like, I don't know if I agree with like X, Y, Z or your conclusions. There were two in particular where I was like, this is like your typical, ghost hunter presentation. But by and large, like I was impressed with just the quality, definitely higher than normal for a paranormal conference or anything like that. So yeah, I really appreciated that. I thought it was great. Like I enjoyed my time there. And I learned a lot too, and that's always fun.
Cool. Anything, Tim, Kenny, any questions, comments up to this point?
No, I mean, I'm glad that you had a good time, and it was nice that like the two of you can go there and enjoy yourself and not like walk away going, what the fuck? And I mean, we've all been there. We've all been to places like that. So it's nice to hear that you were able to walk away saying that you had a good time and enjoying it and all that. And I like the idea that there were no vendors there. That's nice because it kind of, I don't know how to say it without sounding like too elitist, but it kind of filters out the groups that are there just for, hey, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you don't have an opportunity to sell your book or your gadgets or, you just promote your ghost hunting team. It's, you have to submit, you have to apply for it, basically, and you have to be approved to get in to give a presentation. And I like the idea that it's there for the presenters. So all the focus is on the presenters, not, we can go buy jewelry and crystals and books and, gadgets and stuff like that and miss the talks, which are usually the point of these conferences. So good to hear.
I want to say I like the statements you made about when people come and talk to you because you're a skeptic. It turns out pretty good for the most part, except for Kenny. I sometimes wonder, this is going to be a broad statement. If we're underestimating or not estimating correctly, maybe the number of people that are into ghost hunting or paranormal investigation that actually seek for a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And when they meet something or somebody when they meet somebody that is thinking differently than what their group is, and I don't mean their group is in their team, but like the group that they're in, like the culture that they're in, and they see somebody that's going, hey, we're thinking about this differently. Like we want what you want. Like we would love to be able to see and find and experience something that we can't explain. Like we want that, but we really need data driven to make us believe that we can't explain that at the moment, just at the moment. And we're willing to accept that. We're not even saying things don't exist. We're just saying if they do, we need to do it this way so we can be sure of it. I think that is attractive towards people that really honestly are looking for stuff. I do. And I think when probably you go into, or any of us go into a place that is just, people, and again, I have no problem with people doing it for fun and they love the culture and they love the scare and they love the trips and they love the experiences in dark places. And I have no problem with that. Go have fun. But people that are also very interested in fact-finding information and doing something different than what they have been doing for 3, 4, 5 years, run into somebody that's like yourself or like any other people that were probably there. I think it's very refreshing and it kind of catches their attention.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that you had a positive experience too. I mean, that's like, I guess because I've written so much about different areas and locations and of course people, my reactions will be varied. I can show up and I mean, I show up at places and some of the people that I've written about are present, and you know, they understandably they're upset. So we might have a less friendly confrontation. But I try to keep it friendly. And I mean, these guys have been there when people have come up with the negative attitude and just completely unsolicited and just, you know, in my face. But I want to make it clear, like, for the most part, it's like the experience that you had. Most people just want to know my opinion on something and why I think the way I do. So it's usually a positive experience.
Yeah. I think it helps too. Like, I mean, I've just kind of broken out into the skeptical world this year, because for years I've been hanging out only with paranormal people. And so for me, I don't try to tell people what to think. I just ask questions. Like I do the Socratic method. And I mean, I honestly think it's in my opinion, I think it's the best way to do it, because it gets them talking versus me just sitting there lecturing them about what's right and wrong. And like, if someone says something objectively incorrect, I'll say something. Most of the time I just ask questions and kind of let them lead themselves to figure out something, which is what I actually did during my presentation, which was kind of cool. But
That's good.
Yeah. So I thought I'd just go over a really quick list of who was there and the talks they gave. And then Jon, I'll have you kind of describe a little bit more about what your talk was about. And then I'll do the same with mine. And then we'll probably end it there and transition over to the evidence versus data discussion. So John Sable, Mary Becker, photography, memory, and excavating performances. Pat Bussard O'Keefe, Are You an Astral Projector? Jon Michael, Falsification in Paranormal Research, Elevating Standards Through Scientific Skepticism. Glennie Sewell, Imaginal Consciousness Evolution via Lived Paranormal Experiences Workshop. Ron Iacovetti, The Flintstone Tape Theory. Give him an A for creative.
I like that. I thought it was new. I was like, wait, you just can't drop that and not explain the Flintstone tape theory. Okay.
He put the quote Flintstone tape theory. So he talked about stone tape theory. Sean Daly, there's a couple academics there. Sean Daly, PhD, Ryan Gochner, PhD, and Christine Daly, PhD, Indigenous Paranormal and Supernatural Phenomena in Pennsylvania. Brandon Masulo, The Misguided Afterlife, Ghosts and Beliefs That Bind Them. Cara Salento and Gail Gamble, From Skepticism to Acceptance, Understanding Paranormal Experiences. Sam Baltrusis, Dustin Ryan Crawley, Spectral Slander, Myths and Misconceptions Associated with Salem, Massachusetts. Lauren Hellickson, The KSE Method. AP Strange, The Misunderstood Magic of the Monster of Ness. Kirsty Beth, I might be saying that wrong. If Walls Could Talk, Exploring the Stone Tape Theory in the Science of Residual Hauntings. Then mine, there's an app for that. Randy Bergsma, The Clint Method, Creating Channeled Art by Recreating Hilma and Clint's Seance Techniques. John Griffin, Project Apparition Hall. Alex Matsuo, Grief, Genocide, and Ghost, The Cost of Collecting the Macabre. And Michael John Agnes, Mark of the Dead. So that was just a quick list and titles of the talks. There was a lot of, I saw probably 5 of them or so, I think. Again, there was some I wanted to see that were concurrent to other ones I wanted to see. So you kind of had to pick the one you wanted to go to. And then when I was giving my talk, there was another one that I wanted to go see because it was kind of similar about data collection. And I'm like, So one suggestion next year would be, when you have similar topics or talks, try to not have them at the same time. Let's alter them a little bit so people can get a little bit of flavor on both of them. Anyway, so Jon, I don't know if you want to take just a couple minutes to talk about what you went through and what you talked about, and then I'll do the same. Mine will be really quick.
Yeah, I mean, my whole presentation, at the end of the day, I was just talking about skepticism. That was the secret sauce. But I kind of wanted to show people 3 things. And one, I also didn't have my CPAP that weekend. I left my water taken home. So I was dying of just sleep deprivation. But I wanted to show people 3 things. It's a big deal for me, like where people get their ideas from. A lot of times when you talk to somebody in the paranormal world and you say, well, how do you know that? You almost always get back to, it's been said, or they say, right? And the problem with that for me is it shows you that you're not, at least with that particular aspect, like you're not in control of your own life. We call it the locus of control. You have an external locus of control because you're letting things guide your beliefs and opinions, but you don't even know what those things are that are guiding your beliefs and opinions. And so you're not in control of your life. It creates social malleability. There was a recent study that just came out not too long ago where the amount of narcissists who lead paranormal teams is higher than, like, statistically the United States average. And so you're more, so you're more apt, where if you're not asking questions, you're more apt to get hooked in by these narcissists who are leading these teams. And so, and they wind up controlling your life and beliefs. And so I did what's called a history of ideas. And that's essentially tracing an idea as far back as you can and kind of watching the evolution of that idea. And so I started with skepticism. I was like, we're just going to talk about skepticism and trace that idea. So I started with Socrates because that's where it begins. Socrates, basically the start of modern philosophy, is also the start of skepticism. And so I tried to trace that idea all the way up into modern times, and that's where science comes from. The reason we don't study philosophy as much is because a guy named Karl Popper came up with the idea of falsifiability, which is the idea of trying to disprove what you believe versus prove what you believe. So prior to Popper, like in the 1900s, early 1900s, people were called justificationalists, I think. They tried to prove their beliefs. What does that do? Introduce cognitive bias. You want what you believe to be true, right? Whereas Popper came up with an idea where you should try to disprove your beliefs. And that way it helps eliminate bias. And you can think about things you've never thought about before. And actually, we did a demonstration with the lady who had the ghost app. And I thought it was pretty cool. Like, I asked her some questions, and I used one of Melanie Tracy King's tactics, which I think is fantastic. But she told me she had an interesting experience where she was running like a ghost box session, and she was using her app. And the ghost box said something, and it just happened to align with something that was going on in the room. I don't remember now at the time what it was, but that was meaningful for her, right? Like, I could have just like started off with, well, let's talk about statistics and how likely that, but I asked her a question, right? Which is, this is where I've been starting off. Like, let's take that idea. How much do you believe that idea on a scale of 0 to 100? Just give me a number. And I think her belief that a ghost talked to her was like 99.9%. And so I told everyone present, I was like, here's the difference between skeptics and believers. Believers live in the 99.9, but skeptics live in the 0.1. And so I took them into my world, and I asked her, I was like, so it seems like you've got a 0.1% doubt. Like, let's talk about that. Like, why are you not saying 100%? And so she started thinking about it. And I think one of the things she came up with is like, oh, what if the app is like looking at my location? What if the app is listening to my conversation? I didn't say anything, right? She's coming up with it. She's debunking herself, right? And then by the end of it, I mean, I think she was still pretty certain that it was a ghost. However, there was a lot more doubt. And she also learned about phones also in these apps. So either way, she walked off with a positive experience. She's not going to question apps in the future. That's all I care about. I need you to be a little bit better today instead of just converting you to a skeptic, because that's not going to happen. And so I hope she walked away with that experience, just asking more questions. So I showed, everybody that, like, how important it is to try to disprove your ideas instead of proving them. And then I talked about the scientific method, which is, everybody is aware of the scientific method, but I just kind of went through like how to conduct a proper investigation, like what is science and why is it important. And Kenny, I know we've talked about this, but like for me, skepticism is what's going to, and I know these are problematic words, but I'm half tired, so I'm gonna skip right over them. So scientific skepticism is what is either going to approve or disprove the paranormal, whether that's even possible. So if the paranormal was proven, I'm not going to stop being a skeptic. Like, skepticism worked, right? And so we kind of talked about that a little bit also. But yeah, it was, the other thing I was so afraid of, right? Every time you go to a paranormal conference and you're the skeptic, how many people show up for your talk? Like 3. And so like because everyone wants to hear all the more interesting stuff, and I get it. But when I walked into the room, I think it was me, Brandon Masulo and you, Dave, and your wife, and I think maybe one or two other people. I was like, this is fine. I mean, this is more than what I expected. I think Pat O'Keefe was going on where she was talking about astral projection, and there was like another one going on that was pure paranormal. So I walked off to use the bathroom, and then when I came back, it was standing room only. I was like, holy shit. Like, I don't know if I can cuss, but I did. I was like, people are curious, you know what I mean? Like, they want to hear like a different point of view. And like I said, I don't try to like shit on people. Again, I don't know if I'm supposed to be cussing, but
You can cuss. It's really
Have you
funny.
watched this show?
I'm half asleep, and I got into a car wreck, Dave, trying to get here for you, and then you won't even give me the fourth
No
slot.
fucking problem, man. Just keep
But yeah, I try not to crap on people because I think people do have strange experiences. Where I disagree is, was it an actual ghost, right? I don't think so, but maybe it is. Let's talk about it. I've had weird experiences too. So it was never a ghost or anything paranormal. It was just weird because I'm weird. But I don't know. I'm hoping that like that openness and validation, I hope it precedes me. Like I hope that people know that I'm not just going to sit down and like just totally take a dump on like whatever they believe, but I'm just going to ask questions and we're going to talk through it if you want to. So yeah, it was like, I mean, legitimately, like I was humbled. Like I walked out like jumping up and like high-fiving the door banisters just because people were open to listen, and that's all I could ask for, right? So it was pretty cool. I enjoyed my talk there.
Yeah, no, John gave a good talk, and definitely it was as a witness, standing room only. People were interested, engaged, so it was a good talk. And yeah, you could tell people are, at least at this venue, they were more open to other opinions.
Yeah. So like I said, if I could have taken just one thing away, it's don't try to prove your belief, but try to disprove it and just ask questions, right? Like don't, and I hope I showed also that, you know, when she was like, oh, I believe it was a ghost, that's where the conversation ended. There's like nothing else you can really talk about. But when I point out the point one, it opened up a whole larger conversation that she was a part of. And it's like, I hope I showed that skepticism isn't about not believing. It's about wonder and thinking and creativity and trying to think through problems and come to understand that whatever the truth is, I want to figure out what it is, even if it totally changes my worldview. Hell yeah, brother. Like I got a new worldview now. And so like, I hope I demonstrated that with her because it was fun watching her get excited about talking about the phone app and all the things that it could be. Like she was more excited about the phone app tracking her than she was about the ghost that supposedly talked to her. So that's
be more concerned about the phone app tracking.
I'm sure she was, but she was just like, wow, this is crazy. So it was fun. I'm yammering, but
no, it's fine.
I like a point there that we've all talked about on the show, but just to follow up a little bit with something right at the end that you said was, you know, if you limit your belief that it's a ghost, then you've closed the door to other opportunities that could be an explanation that could maybe even be far more amazing than just a ghost. Now, I'm going to say, you know, what could that possibly be? But if it's not a ghost, you know, it's just, we don't know everything. Like, what else could it be? Like, I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but once you say it's a ghost, then you close the door to other fascinating opportunities that might not be as fascinating, but could be backed and proven, but still be very fascinating. And also it could be more fascinating. You know, what if what you think's a ghost is really is Santa Claus checking on your shit, and we find out about it and we're like, oh my God, Santa Claus is real. No wonder after 6th grade I didn't get anything but coal.
It makes sense. But and John Kennedy said something. He said, I'd rather be bored by facts than dazzled by bullshit. But like my thing is, like, I think facts are fucking fascinating. And I think it's all how I think sometimes as skeptics we get so in our head that we forget that there's an emotional component to human beings. That's why I like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Carl Sagan so much. Like, I mean, we could talk about like red shifting of stars, right? That's kind of boring. Stars that are further away are shifting to a red color spectrum. Cool. But because of that, like we know we live in a universe that is trillions of light years big. And so when you look up at the sky at nighttime, you have to remember that those photons traveled 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, sometimes millions of years. And those photons traveled who knows how far and just happened to enter into your eye, like when you looked up, right?
Technically,
And so-
you're looking back in time at that point.
Correct. And when you look up, you are literally looking at a kaleidoscope of different timelines.
Mhm.
And that's scientific, baby. And it's freaking fascinating. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes as skeptics, we focus so much on the logic, we forget that like you can tell real facts in really interesting and emotional ways. So that's a good point, John Kennedy.
We personally just killed a photon that's been traveling for 10 billion years.
Yeah.
And we killed it.
But not only did you kill it, it absorbed as energy into your body. So that small amount of star energy you use as a calorie to like function.
Anything that's absorbed in my body dies.
True. But it's fascinating to me. I think facts can be very interesting.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So quick recap on mine. I talked about, well, let me start off by saying this is a presentation where my second slide was, this is what I'm not going to be talking about. And it was a snapshot of a search of all those ghost hunting apps that you can find and download, and, you know, the ghost radar and all that stuff. So I know when the abstract first got out and the announcement was made about what I was going to talk about, a lot of people right away were just like, some were like, oh yeah, I love apps. Other people like, yeah, they're all crap. There's nothing to them. So I had to make
I
sure.
will not lie to you. When I saw your presentation, I was like, Dave, come on. I expect more from you.
I don't know. I had to come up with a catchy title there, but the whole thing was to set the stage of, we're not going to talk about these ones that I consider entertainment, their entertainment value. So where I went with it is I started talking about why would you data log, then talked about what it takes to collect quality data. You know, you got to have the right person in the right place in the right environment to have an experience due to whatever it may be due to. I talked a little bit about the history of data loggers, from some of the very earliest ones, the hardware systems, to some of the newer ones. And then I started getting into, why would you want to collect data on magnetic fields, electromagnetic fields, infrasound. So I had a couple slides that outlined where natural causes are from, why you would want to look at it when you're doing this type of paranormal research, and then references so people can go look it up and get a little more information on that. Then I went through and started talking about the type of sensors your smartphones have, because they have pretty damn good quality sensors. They are really quite good. The problem is you need to have a way to collect the actual numerical data and then analyze it later. So the rest of the talk then talked about the type of sensors, what they can detect, what they can't. And then I went into a quick mini statistics course on, once you get it, here's what you do with it, and here's what it means. And then at the end, I kind of talk about, okay, like your cell phone cannot actually log and collect and sense electromagnetic field data. It's got magnetic field because of the compass and the sensors, the Hall effect sensors in there. So I talked a little bit about that and what you could do to interface. You could use, you know, where to get them if you wanted to do that type of stuff. And then I also did a little bit on haunted and non-haunted locations, why you should collect data at both locations. So there was a couple people that had some questions. I know people were asking how much the apps were, which they were anywhere from free to, I think, $15. And the best part really is that, you know, everybody has smartphones these days, and the sensors are damn good. They're better than some of the stuff you're going to buy at certain shops that sell equipment. They'll do the same thing, and they'll actually give you the numerical data so you can output it and analyze it. I think the key is anybody can collect data. The next step always, what do you do with it? Great, you have red and green and yellow lights. What does that tell you?
Is the cell phone, are
Nothing.
the cell phones black and red though? Because like, how can you go?
You can get different cell phone colors, and if you don't like the color, you can get a case for it.
Okay, to make it black and red. Okay,
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think the one thing I forgot to mention, which I would think people would know this, but I'm going to assume maybe they don't. Anytime you collect that type of data with your smartphone, put it in airplane mode. So you're not having stuff coming in and other things shooting out, so it doesn't potentially cause false positives or false negatives. So that was my talk.
That's pretty cool.
And
Yeah.
I'll say, like, I thought it was an excellent talk.
Wow,
I didn't think you were the kind of person that was going to go in the woo. And I know you were like, oh man, I feel like my talk was boring, but I watched like the whole thing. Like I said, I wanted your presentation because I wanted to go through it.
Yep.
But yeah, I really enjoyed your talk. Like it was very good. I think a lot of people got a lot out of it.
So hopefully
At least I did. I mean, you know what I mean? So at least one person got something out of it. So I appreciate that.
Well, I'm glad somebody did. No, I think the point is, and it's something we brought up on the show before, if you're going to collect data, if you're going to do anything, know what it's doing, why it's doing it, how it works, and how to analyze it. That was the whole point. Don't just download an app that shows you stick figures dancing around, or it has something that says there's a ghost 10 feet away from you. How in the fuck would you know that? And why would you think your phone could tell you that?
We're
So,
getting
anyway.
some bucks from Dave. He's getting there. I like it.
So, all right. All right. So we have, I think, thoroughly covered the Paranormal Research Symposium. I assume they're going to do it again next year. Definitely would attend, and I would encourage people to attend if you want something a little different than the normal Paracon or ghost hunting conference. Somewhere where you can very open to everybody, and somewhere that hopefully you can learn something or at least have some really good conversations and dialogues, which I think we all did, even after hours when we were out having a few drinks and having a good time.
Yeah, if there's any skeptics in here, you have to understand paranormal people know how to party. It's absurd.
That's why Kenny goes to any of this shit.
That's right, bitches. I'm there for the party. No, I wish it would be nice to see other Paracons follow suit with that. I think there's too much emphasis in the community in general. There's too much emphasis on booths, vendors. Let's get people in there because it's more of a money thing. I really think that let's charge the vendors to come in when we charge the people to come in, and it's not about information. It's about let's promote everyone. Let's let everyone promote themselves. Let them work their you have your psychics that have their tables. You have the people selling equipment that doesn't work at their tables. You have a bunch of ghost hunters that promote their teams with photo albums of dust and hair and stuff like that. I'm having fun with them. But I mean, it's nice to see that there is a conference that is more focused on information, and not just information. It's you have to submit something. You have to submit what you're going to talk about and have it approved before you go in. Because I got to tell you,
then you got to write a paper afterwards.
Yeah, I mean that's great because most of the talks that I see at a lot of these conferences are a waste of time. And that's just my personal honest opinion. They're a waste of time because it's mostly just based on opinion and thoroughly belief based rather than someone doing the work and really doing the research behind it. I mean, that's anytime you do anything, Dave, like I'm there. I would love to see it because I know you do quality research behind the scenes. We get the information that you're supposed to do.
I helped him with the statistical research.
Yeah, I know. I told you were overqualified.
Yeah, that was a little insulting, Kenny.
And we'll have to explain that maybe at the end of the show what they're talking about.
The other thing I appreciated too is like even when they were accepting papers, it wasn't just like, oh, here's a bunch of paranormal people reading over our papers. Like they actually contacted people that they knew who had PhDs and had gone through like the abstract submission process. They had like a rubric where they like graded stuff on. And so it wasn't just, paranormal believers sitting on a panel trying to find something they agree with. They actually tried to get people who didn't necessarily agree with them, but like understood the abstract process. So I think that's great. Move totally in the right direction.
Yep, definitely.
So did they have any media that they can put out, just as maybe not necessarily the whole speech, but just something to put out? Because this sounds like something like I really want to go to next year.
So they were.
But if they have something just to spin it, some like a 5-10 minute.
I don't know.
I hate to say
That's a good
splash
idea.
reel.
That's a good idea. And John, we can maybe mention that to Alex.
Yeah.
But I think before the conference, we had to sign off and give permission to record our talks. But I don't know if they had a people problem or a tech limitation, but they couldn't do that at the conference. But
I was confused by that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think one of the biggest things is, check out the proceedings from the prior year. I mean, that's one way to do it. And yeah, I think it's going to really, they didn't record it. Maybe they did some little video captures here and there. I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be word of mouth, kind of promoting this and kind of a grassroots effort. And obviously I'd be more than happy to help with that, because I think it's a great initiative and we need to keep this going.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things, like whether you agree with the paranormal or not, in my opinion, it's a step in the right direction. And so for me, like, I support things like this, especially their openness to hearing other opinions that they don't necessarily agree with.
Yep.
So
That's cool.
Good. All right. Well, with that, we are going to move on to evidence versus data. Are they the same or not? And I would start with Kenny, because that'd just be fun, because I can see his face already. Tim's been exceptionally quiet, so we're going to let Tim open this one up. What do you think, Tim? Is there a difference? What's your opinion?
I think Kenny has all 3 screens with different things on it. He's going left to up to right to left to up, but he's highlighted all his stuff. He's ready to go.
Yes, around it.
I just based on from evidence and data from my point of view, just on my job, is way different. So I could just say, data is like you go to a crime scene and you collect information that looks like it could be pertinent. So it's like a context thing. So if you go to a shooting and you find 3 or 4 pistols laying on the ground, each one of those pistols are data. But if there's only one shooter and one, so you have data, but now you need evidence to collect and fit that into, what you're looking for at the outcome to see, not to make the outcome, but to see what the outcome is. So you're going to have to test each one of those pistols. You're going to have to test to see which one was fired. You're going to have to test if you found a bullet, you're going to have to test it. And it's testing that data, and it's whittling. It's does this test eliminate this data? And I think once you have something that looks like it fits to match what the outcome of that, whatever it was that you're collecting for the outcome, then you take it basically to peer review, which is court. And then you have somebody on the other side that tells you and just rips you up, just like peer review. Well, did you think of this? Did you think of that? How come you didn't test that? How come you didn't go into the woods and look for, you know what I'm saying? And of course, it's not exactly the same. It's not the same level as being in peer review or scientific basis. But I think for a real world kind of like understanding of what data and evidence is, data is just the stuff you get. It's just the stuff you get. It's everything that you collect. Everything can be data and is data. But putting it into perspective and context for an information of what you're looking for, or working backwards or working forwards just to see what happened. It's piecing it together. And once it's pieced together and you think you have something that works, it's going into a peer review process where somebody gets to try to rip your idea apart. And if it holds true and if it stands the test, then it looks like, someone's going to prison, or someone's getting published, one of the two. But yeah, that's kind of how it goes. And it's normal for me to be in that realm. So that seems to fit an idea better for me.
Okay, great. All right, Kenny, I can see you're ready to go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, it's not the same. It is not the same. Okay. So data is where you start. Data is the raw information. It's the numbers, it's the figures, it's the string of readings that you get over a course of time. It is, as Tim pointed out, it's when you go to a crime scene, there's data. There are who's there, who was there, collect all the people, the names, the times they were there, what was in the bank. Is there any leftover clothing? Is there any leftover items like weapons, clothing, crowbar, something like that, that tools that they might have used? You collect all that and you bring it together with readings. And we'll use like paranormal stuff. Like if you go in with reading the environment for temperature, humidity, and you want barometer and EMF and stuff like that, you collect these readings over time. Maybe hours or days or weeks or years. You collect all the numbers, all the data points over a specific period of time. That's your data. Your data is the raw information. It doesn't tell the story yet. It doesn't tell you which one is right or wrong. That happens and it becomes evidence when you take that data and start analyzing it properly. When you know what you're talking about, when you know the equipment, when you know how the equipment reads the environment, you start interpreting the data as in, okay, how many spikes? What were the spikes attributed to? Okay, are there any anomalies within this data set? Because if you can attribute all the spikes and dips in, say, an EMF reading over a course of a month to the stuff that's in the scene or in the environment, then you know what's going on. But if there's an anomaly, now there's something, and that's evidence for something more or something different. Not paranormal doesn't mean paranormal or ghost or demon or whatever. It just means there's something else going on. This is evidence of something different. We need to look into this further. So yeah, I mean, evidence it's organized, it's analyzed, it's presented as it's presenting in support of a claim. So you have a hypothesis, you test things, you bring the data, you look at it, you say, you know what? We have so much data. Some of this doesn't match what we would expect. It's an anomaly. Now this is in support. It is evidence of an anomaly. So it's supporting what you're bringing to the table. And I think that's the big difference. And I think there's a conflation of the terms here where people, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've all heard ghost hunters or other people say, I'm going to this place tonight. It's haunted. I can't wait to get all the evidence. They're not even there. They're not even there. They haven't set foot in the place. They still have a long drive, but they still are thinking they have evidence. And again, like if you record something, if you leave an audio recorder out and you get a strange sound and you hear it, it's still data. If you hear that strange sound, it is not evidence yet. You have to analyze the whole area, the entire environment, see what else was going on at the time, and put all the pieces together before you can say, well, there's no known cause for this that we know of with all our measurements and stuff. So this is an anomaly. So now I'm going to use this specific data as evidence to support the idea that something else happened here. That's it. And I think it's just, this is not being insulting to the community, but I think it's the ignorance of the people in the community of science that leads to this conflating of the two terms.
So I think Kat in the chat also. Oh, yeah.
Here from scene. This is how the lawyers use the data.
Oh, you got a cat too. I got a cat.
So I think it's also with that, just to add on to it, the data can be brought to experts that the court calls to the witness stand and says, this is our expert witness. Here's the data that we know. How you were able to look at it. How did you interpret this? And now we get an expert opinion. And that, again, that works for both sides because, you know, you're going to have the defense and they're going to have their own experts come in and look at it. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the big difference that I see.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Kat also made a good point when that's what I was going to point out was, you know, evidence for something still, you know, you have to I like that you use the idea of you create your hypothesis, then you look for data, and then you see what data supports it or disproves it. If you're being fair with yourself, and then from there you're like, okay, now I have evidence of this that supports my hypothesis. You still have to test the evidence. You still have to go through it again and see if it upholds and will hold. And if you feel absolutely certain, it's like going to that peer review point, here it is. Look at everything I collected. This is everything. I'm not showing you just what I passed as evidence. I'm also going to go back and show you all the data to see if you come back and how I collected it and what I did, to see if you see anything that I did wrong or you would have done different or that I missed, because maybe I was too hyper-focused on my hypothesis and never considered another hypothesis, which is okay. That's okay. Like, people do that all the time. And that's one of the good things about having somebody else take a look at your work. It's fine. And you learn from someone else coming in and saying, well, you didn't exactly do this right. And I think if you would have considered it this way, you would have come to a different conclusion. Right. And that's good. That's growing. That's just what it is. But I think every step should be tested, even when you have evidence and you're like, okay, I have evidence of this, kind of like the expert coming in and saying why that evidence is evidence and why that person's training can verify and validate that as evidence is just another way to test it, because that person will also get peer reviewed or crossed and have to, see if their training and their expertise will uphold as well. So the whole process is always testing. Right. And it's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
Yeah, it's a good comment by Pam. Part of the issue is that there are no rules. Who would you take it to that is an expert? The field of paranormal study is pretty dicey. It is, but there are people that are experts in environmental data, environmental analysis, data analysis. There's people that, there's professors, there's skeptics, there's parapsychologists. There's nobody that knows everything, obviously. However, there are people that spend a career and a lifetime analyzing certain types of data. And that's why I think part of this topic kind of generated from, I think Kenny asked the person that he was interacting with that generated this topic of, what expert did you take it to? And I believe the return comment was, I am an expert.
So question,
I forgot that. Oh my God.
The question was posed because this was a ghost hunting group that presented themselves as, first, let me preface it by saying that they announced that they had celebrated their 1,250th investigation. It's something like, I think that was the number. Don't quote me on that. But I did the calculation, and it would mean that they did an investigation once a week for 20.4 years. That's what it came out. I remember that. And that's just going. That's not actually analyzing anything. Okay. Is that right?
No, but you and I had the exact same. Okay. We had this. Yes.
I do believe you also paid for this talk.
I paid for it. I got in. Yeah. And there's a lot to this story. But
how many years had they been in?
Yeah.
It's $1 for every year.
They showed what they claimed was evidence, which was not. It was terrible. And I asked the question at the end. I said, hey, do you send out your stuff, like your evidence and all your data? Do you send this out to independent third-party professionals? That was my wording, because I wanted to make sure I said independent third-party professionals. And his response was, we are professionals. And I laughed because I'm like, no, you're not. No, you've demonstrated no skill or education or knowledge in any of the things that you presented tonight. So I said, no, actual professionals that are independent from you, professionals in the relevant fields. And I got the, oh yeah, we do.
So don't question my statistics, because they're
impeccable.
The odds of them being off are, well, I don't even know.
There's a high level
10 years. If they've been investigating for 10 years and they did 1,200 investigations, then 365 or 3,650 days in 10 years divided by 1,200 is an investigation every 3.04 days every day, if I'm correct.
Listen, back in the days that Jen and I had a group, we did investigations, which we don't do anymore. There's no way. I mean, if you want to do anything, even a half-assed job of it, I'm sorry, but you should. There's a procedure you follow. You kind of, you chat on the phone pre-investigation. We would send out question sets, variety of different things that measure belief, transliminality, all this other stuff that you would look for. Then we'd go and do kind of a pre-visit, talk to them, make sure they're not too crazy so they don't kill everybody in the group, maybe just the two of us that go at first. And then you go and spend a couple hours there at least. And one of the big reasons we don't do that anymore is because to me and to us, when Jen and I started looking at this, 4 hours even at a location is not enough to figure out anything that's going on, unless it's an easily explainable natural phenomena that you can catch pretty quick. But if you're truly trying to dive into this and you're trying to figure out what's going on, there's a lot of dynamics, there's a lot of environmental stuff. It takes multiple times. And then after you collect all that information, you have to actually go through and analyze that and do it more than I listen to the recorders or I watch the video. There's a lot more. You're trying to correlate things. You're trying to find if there's significant differences. It takes a long, long time. So I don't know. For example, I worked with a team of people that we did something at the Hinsdale house and we're working on a book about it, but it literally took a year to analyze a weekend of data that we collected. A year. Now, we're not doing this full time. We're not full-time researchers in this. We have other jobs. So that adds time to it. But there is no way in hell you're doing something every 3 days and coming up with anything that's logical or conclusive.
Right.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen like a rise of pseudo data scientists in the paranormal field. And I'm no data scientist. I'm not a data expert, but I feel like I know enough at this point where if you just start off data collecting, you're skipping a lot of steps. Like data collection is like what, step 5 of the scientific method, if I'm not mistaken. It's like over halfway through the scientific method. You're just walking in and data collecting, but you haven't defined your data. You haven't defined, what are we searching for? You're just casting a net. And if you cast a net, you're going to find stuff. It may not be stuff can be turned into evidence, but you're going to find something that backs up your beliefs, right? And so for me, I think, that's again why I talked about the scientific method, because I think it is important for people to make an observation, ask questions, come up with a hypothesis, run an experiment, and then try to disprove your hypothesis. That's the whole point of science. I think people forget about that. But I know a lot of teams that go in like, well, we're collecting data, but they haven't defined what noise is, right? So like if I have a hypothesis that that orbs are ghosts when I take pictures, if Jon farts during an orb capture session, that's not data, right? Like you can collect that, but it's not data, it's noise. And I just don't think there's a lot of teams out there who define what data they're looking for. And in science, evidence is you've done the experiments, you've run your analysis, and hey, it looks like your analysis, like what you gather, the data kind of backs up your conclusions and your hypothesis. That's evidence, but it doesn't become proof until you share that. It gets torn apart by the entire scientific community because, again, what is science doing? It's trying to disprove your hypothesis, right? Trying to disprove what you came up with. They're going to throw everything they can at it. And to other people outside of science, it looks like they're being a bunch of dicks. But really, like, that's what a good scientist would want. And I'm not trying to do like a true Scotsman thing, but I think that's the definition of science.
Careful.
And so, like, proof is not until you have thrown this against the wall, however many times it takes to come up with your p-value, Dave, to hit whatever you decided was the appropriate p-value for your particular field. Most science, that's 95% certainty. But, depending on the field, that can go up to high. Like basic particle physics, the p-value is like 99.9% repeating. It's absurd. Like if paranormal people want to complain about how hard it is to collect data, go work in basic particle physics. It's 99.9 repeating percent certainty until they consider it proof. Very difficult. And so, I don't think people understand science, and they're just walking in and casting a net and calling it data collection. And it's not. You've got to start off with, observation and testing and asking questions.
I think it's also a matter of, are you collecting good data? Because we've had the discussion about baselines. And one of the papers we wrote together is looking at a non-haunted location and just running an EMF data logger meter. And what you find is that there's ups and downs all the time. It happens. There's natural fluctuations. And if you're out with a handheld piece of equipment and you're looking at just the needle moving or the lights changing color, and you're walking around changing the orientation, it's a single axis meter, you're getting different reads. And if people are saying that's a baseline, that's not good data. So even in order to interpret and analyze, you have to have good data to interpret and analyze. Otherwise, it's crap in, crap out. So there's even more to it than just plain data and evidence. How good is your data? Is it quality?
That is a great point. And honestly, I didn't even think about that when I talked about it, but you're right. That's an excellent point.
I mean, when we read papers, the methodology is spelled out for you. It's all there. It tells you exactly how they set up the test, the protocols in place, what they controlled for, and how they set up their equipment. So this is something that this community needs to follow suit with, because you see so many people just saying, hey, look, my meter lit up. That must be a ghost. And it's like, our first questions are, well, why the fuck are you using that thing? Second, it's like, well, what did you do to set up? What was the protocol? Did you control for anything in the environment? Like we know that two-way radios can affect that. Did you guard against radio waves? And none of this is done. This is not the type of experiments people set up for.
Do you know how that piece of equipment that you're holding in your hand collects the data?
Right.
Do you know what it's doing so that you can properly shield it?
Is your device
the devil balls? Yeah, the devil balls
calibrated properly.
Yeah. Do you know what the precision accuracy is?
Right.
That makes a difference too, because if sensitivity, because if your equipment can only measure a 1 milligauss change, and you're coming back and telling us a 0.5 milligauss change is indicative of a ghost, no, it's not. It's within the natural fluctuation of the device and the sensors.
Right.
This goes back, for me, it goes back to, if you have proper technique, you don't have to worry about all this. Like if you are following science and using the scientific method, even if you use a spurious tool, you arrive at like a better technique in order to discover potential truth than if you could even have like the best tool in the world, a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. You know how it works. You've calibrated it. You know everything about it. But if you walk in trying to have an experience or, capture ghosts, you might as well have a REM pod at that point, because your technique isn't proper.
Pam has a good comment. I'm concerned we might be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. What if proof is being dismissed because of who recorded it?
No, because proof is not a single data point. Proof is something that has been repeated. Just when you actually look at scientific studies and realize like how much they've been repeated, it's nuts. And how they continue to repeat stuff that they're pretty sure is correct. Proof is not, for one, in science, truth is provisional. That's not relative. It's provisional until we find something that seems more true, right? So really, there never is like any 100% proof of anything. But proof is throwing something against the wall ad infinitum until you are forced to say, this is proof and it cannot be anything else, or it's very likely not anything else. So it's not because some ghost hunter have some kind of proof. A single ghost hunter cannot provide proof. That's just not how knowledge works.
Yeah, I don't think it's who recorded it. It's how it was recorded, how it was analyzed, how the conclusions were made, and has it been peer reviewed? I mean,
Right.
Tim Kenny and I sent an article in, peer reviewed. They didn't care who we were. They were looking at the quality of what we did and the conclusions that we reached.
Right.
It didn't faze them at all that we weren't academics at a university. They're like, whatever, we're going to look at it the same way we do everybody else that submits something.
It wasn't the names on the paper. It was the methodology, the equipment, the process, the interpretation, and the conclusions based on that. I mean, that's all it is. And then, yeah, we're not actually saying it's the person themselves. It's the methods that are being used or not used. That's the problem. You know, if you are using a gadget, and it's known that two-way radios will affect that, will have an impact on that. One, it's up to the experimenter, whoever it is, whether it's a scientist or a ghost hunter, it's up to them to do the proper research, because that's part of it. I mean, even when you start doing the scientific method, your first option is like, you ask a question, like what happens? What happens when this lights up? I don't know. Let's do research. That's your next step, to understand that product, to understand how it interprets signals, what it picks up, how it interprets those signals, how it if there's any triggers, all of this. So you should be finding the literature that says, hey, two-way radios affect this. And by forming your experiment, when you construct an experiment to test it, you need to take that into account. And if you're not doing these things, these are the simple first steps. If you're not doing those, the data is not valid. And that's what we're saying.
Before we move to this, Pam had a really good thing that they said. We're not scientists for the most part.
Well, that's exactly what.
If you're doing paranormal research, in my humble opinion, you are researching what I think would be the absolute most revolutionary thing to ever be discovered. I cannot think of a bigger question. Is there life after death? I just can't. And so if you are doing research in the paranormal and making claims and leading people potentially astray, it's on you to understand science. You don't have to go get a PhD, but take some time to understand science. Take some time to understand your own biases, which is the question we're about to get into. And take some time to understand how to do proper research. You don't have to be a PhD, but you sure can be a citizen scientist and engage with people who are scientists.
I was just going to say that citizen scientists are very powerful these days.
Right.
Limited resources, limited number of people, limited collecting data. Citizen scientists can help with that. You can collect that data, spend the time in the field to do that, and then have a academic or scientist evaluate it if you don't know how to do that. But so that's a good transition that leads into Brandon's question. Is walking in with a belief a place is haunted the same as walking in with disbelief that it's haunted? I'll go first. I would say yes, because they both have biases, but you should look at it from you really should go in with a neutral standpoint. If I don't know if it's haunted or not. I'm here to collect the data and then see where the interpretation of the data leads us. So let's go. Kenny, go.
Damn it. I completely agree with you, Dave. I think it's two sides of a coin. If you go in with the full belief that it's haunted, yes, I think you're going to find stuff that's weird and you're going to interpret it that way. If you go in with the full belief that no, it's not haunted, you're going to discount everything that comes up. I think you might be more cynical that way. Going in with a neutral attitude, and despite what some might think, that's what I go in for. If I go into a location that has all these stories about it, I'm hopeful. My hope is that tonight's the night. I'm going to see something freaking awesome, and it's going to scare the shit out of me. This is going to be great. You know,
I
but
will leave a comment for that. Just
my job is to investigate the claims that have been made. So most of the claims that I investigate, admittedly, don't rely on so much data. They're mostly interpreted anecdotal, so I can go in and look and see if there's like drafts or something like that, or any kind of other cause. So it's not so data driven in that aspect. But when it is, then I usually turn to Dave. I'm like, Dave, I had something with numbers.
Don't
Yeah,
worry,
Dave.
Tim. We'll pass it along to you at some point. It'll be
Right.
I'll
fine.
check your work, Dave, when
Thank
you're
you.
done.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Professor
Kenny.
Tim. All right. So, John, Tim, anything to add to that?
I would say yes with an asterisk. So, yes, I agree. We need to suspend belief or disbelief. However, I do think like going in with a belief mindset is slightly more problematic than going in with a disbelief mindset, simply because believers tend to try to justify their hypothesis, whereas a person who does not believe is going to tend to try to falsify their hypothesis. That's tends to, right? It's not always going to be the
Not
case.
necessarily, though. If
Correct. Not
if you're
necessarily.
cynical, there's no way they're going in to do that.
That's why I said not necessarily.
Yeah.
I said tends.
Yeah.
It's not always the case. But like it's like a 0.01% asterisk. Like I don't think it's, you know what I mean? I'm probably being pedantic.
He's gonna have to show his data for that conclusion.
I will. I'm gonna have to do an experiment.
We're gonna have to peer review your data on that. So.
So
Yeah.
like for me, there's an example, and I had to look it up because I don't remember their names. I've actually already forgotten their names. But when Einstein had the theory of relativity, he made a prediction that when an eclipse occurs, where the essentially the moon goes in front of the sun, that light would bend around the sun, and we would see stars that are actually behind the sun that we wouldn't expect to be there, which at the time is wild. Like nowadays, it's kind of like, okay, I mean, it's still crazy to think about, but there was a lot of people back then who were just kind of like, Einstein, I think you're kind of crazy for making that suggestion. But there was a lot of scientists. There was one scientist who believed, and I've already forgotten his name. There was another scientist who disbelieved. And they both ran experiments on the same exact solar eclipse, both suspended their bias, and both came up with the exact same conclusion. And so in those cases, if you have the ability to actually follow the scientific method, actually attempt to falsify whether you believe or not, the scientific method is there as a guidepost to eliminate as best as possible bias, whether you believe or not. And that's what's so important about falsifying, is because as part of the falsification process, you do have to suspend any disbelief or belief.
Yep.
So if you have like a negative hypothesis or null hypothesis or whatever, like you have to try to disprove like any kind of claim that's being made. And so, yeah, I agree with slight asterisk, very small.
Yeah, I think you need to do both, because one leads to a false positive, the other one leads to a false negative. So you have
Right.
type 1 and type 2 errors. And those are easily made if you're a believer or you're disbelieving. So as you said, John, good point. You got to basically suspend your belief or your disbelief and go in and collect the data. And usually it would be, but not usually, it would be a good idea to have a hypothesis ahead of time to be testing that against. Because then you're stating something that here is the hypothesis, here's a null hypothesis. The data is going to support the alternate hypothesis or it's not. That's the bottom line. You either accept or reject the null hypothesis. So it's all about hypothesis testing. That's how you start trying to get away from this belief and disbelief, if you have a solid hypothesis that you're going to test.
Right. And Tim, I want you to be able to also answer the question. So I'm going to say this real quick so you have a chance to answer. But just at the Paranormal Research Symposium, I didn't ask for permission to this. I'm sure it's fine because I'm praising him at the end of the day. I was talking with AP Strange, and he wanted to know from a skeptic about something curious that happened to him. Essentially, he felt like a rock appeared in his coat pocket, and he had no idea where it came from. He thought it may have been potentially like a poltergeist thing. I had several options. I could have just laughed at him. I could have told him he was an idiot. Or I could suspend my belief. I'm like, well, I had never heard of poltergeist putting that in your pocket. Let's have a conversation. And so I walked him through the scientific method just by asking questions. Again, like I didn't tell him what was going on. And by the end of it, I suggested a different hypothesis. I asked him what he thought about it. Specifically, like if he had ever been diagnosed with ADHD, because that's something I do with some of the ADHD brain. I pick shit up and put it in my pocket or put it in other places that I don't consciously remember doing. And so we had
guys do it and just forget about it.
right. And so we had the conversation. I think it was something he was probably lensing his belief through. Like he probably had an experience and he's passing that experience through his belief. But at the end of the conversation, like he agreed. He was like, yeah, you're probably right. I probably just put it in my pocket and didn't think about it. Oh, by the way, I might go to my doctor and talk about ADHD. It's something I've been thinking about all the time. So again, like it works, baby. Falsification's awesome. So like I could have just laughed him off and like not talked to him, but hopefully that leads to him thinking more critically and maybe getting some help for potential ADHD. This is why I fucking love falsification. Tim, please. Tell me your thoughts.
I don't
Shut
think
him
there's a
up.
whole lot more. I will make a very vanilla statement and say, as the question stands, yes, they're the same for the reasons stated prior to.
No asterisks?
No asterisks.
I mean, you're going to have an asterisk in the paranormal. You got to have one for the rest of science too, because that's how science works.
Yeah.
All right. Good. All right. Well, I don't think we have any other questions. I think we have done a good job of beating that topic to death. So good. All right. Let's go with closing comments. I am going to start and be polite and go with our guest tonight and have Jon go first.
Oh, wow. I wasn't prepared for this. So I'm glad to finally be invited onto a show. Something I've wanted for a long time. Yes, Kim, question everything.
Yeah, he paid me.
So sure. So I mean, the fact that you took my money, I appreciate. But no, so to go back to the entire topic that we talked about, I'm glad that people are starting to care about data in the paranormal world. I hope they do enough research to understand how to collect it properly. And again, it begins with science. Like if you're doing an empirical investigation, searching for truth that you collect with your five senses, science is just the best way to interpret that. So yeah, I thought it was great. Are we doing shameless plugs also?
We'll get to that after we do.
Okay, great.
Great. I see we have one more question, so we'll do our closing comments. We'll answer one more question, and then we'll do shameless plugs.
Okay.
And just, go take a bathroom break when Kenny goes, because his are the longest.
I get distracted.
All right, Kenny, go.
I like this discussion tonight. It was really good. I liked hearing about the conference and your experiences there. It's nice to hear that at least one conference is shifting more towards the information and focusing on that, making that the priority instead of vendors and selling stuff that people don't really need. It's nice to hear that. I like the discussion about data versus evidence and breaking it down, because there is a difference. I think there is a clear difference, and it needs to be understood and incorporated into people's methodology. And I think the methodology needs to expand more to understand exactly how science conducts their research and experimentation. So, hey, if you want to do this as a hobby, just to get out on a weekend and do something, so be it. But if you, at any point in your hobby, say, yeah, we use science, or we use scientific equipment, or we use science, whatever. If you say that, then it's time to put up or shut up, like actually do it and demonstrate, show your work. So with that, I'll pass it off.
Randy's going to get me in trouble here. And Dave, Kenny is not as evil as you said he was.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
yeah, he is.
You're not seeing me in person, so
yeah, see him in person and get the full effect. So.
Yeah,
give him a sweet tea or two.
Give it a few more times.
Yeah.
He's got to go through another bottle of the sweet tea, and then you'll see Kenny.
All right, Tim.
I'd love tonight's show. I was so happy Jon came on and talked.
Thank you.
I am really interested in going next year to that conference. The topics sound fascinating. It sounds like a good place to learn. Sounds like a good place to actually ask questions that you will get good conversation with. I really do. Evidence and data, I feel the same as you guys do, especially when you hear, like Kenny made a statement that, you go to this place, I can't wait for all the evidence I get. And then, that night they're like, hey, we'll be busy. We're going to go over the 8 hours of evidence we caught. Now, granted, I think that the problem is probably in nomenclature, big word. So sometimes I think that they say words, but they don't mean the words that they're saying. And it sounds more not as specific or accurate.
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable. You keep using that word.
Reference.
Yeah. And I want to go back to, like, I thought Pam had a good thing, and which was we are not scientists. And I'm not, and we're not. Yet I want to add to that not being a scientist doesn't mean that we can perfect and hone down our skills of what we do, and how to look at what's been done to progress moving data to evidence and then apply it the best we can to what we might do out in the field looking for ghosts. It's kind of like that wheel is already there. Will it fit the paranormal perfect? I don't know. Maybe not. But that wheel will probably carry you farther than the wheel that you're using currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. We'll take the one last question. Then we're going to start with shameless plugs by Jon. What would you be looking for as a measurement of seeing a shadow figure? Let's go with the two resident skeptics by name, Kenny and Jon.
So for me, I would look come up with a question first that's testable, not something that like you can't actually test. Like you've got to be able to come up with a question that has the ability to be what's called falsified, like disproven. So come up with like a good question first. I'm tired, so I can't think of a question off the top of my head, but come up with a good question, come up for a hypothesis, and then try to disprove your hypothesis. Try to prove it wrong. So, what does that look like? Does that mean looking at a claim and coming up for a possible interpretation for what the claim is that isn't a shadow person? Maybe it's the way like shadows are bouncing off the light. Then there you go. Like you can ask that question. Well, how do we replicate shadows bouncing off the light? Can we get somebody who doesn't know we're running an experiment to see maybe they can spot a shadow person? Well, you got pretty good evidence right there that particular claim might not be a shadow person. But it's something that's going to take a crap ton of data to actually prove as being the shadow people are actually here. So you kind of start with one claim at a time and try to pick that claim apart until the only thing you can say is had to be a shadow person. I don't know what else it could have been. But that's going to be difficult.
Okay.
Not impossible, just difficult.
Okay. Kenny?
I think there's an issue with the question itself. So
Right.
asking for a measurement, like what are we looking for as a measurement? And I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking, okay, so a shadow is caused by blocking of light. You have ambient light in the area or just a spotlight, whatever. You have a light source shining into an area. There's an object that blocks it that causes a shadow. So in essence, you need to be able to measure anything. You would have to be able to predict where a alleged shadow figure would show up in order to put all of your environmental sensors in that area to see if there's any change during the time of which one would show up. But just by itself, a shadow is the absence of light. There is no measurement except for a light meter. And that's usually because of the amount of light that shines on to the light meter, not necessarily you can't point that in a direction and say, all right, down the hall, tell me how much light is down there. So I think there's a issue with this question, and it's not against Pam at all. I don't think the question can be answered because I don't know what kind of measurement it is. We're talking about something that happens usually within seconds. It's a fleeting moment that people look. Sometimes it's the corner of the eye, which is an issue by itself, but sometimes people are looking down in a hallway or into a room and they see a shadow. And then it goes into what Jon was explaining. Like, we have to, instead of looking for a measurement per se, we have to look for causes of the blockage of light in that area. Can it happen? Is it somebody walking past a window, walking past a doorway? Is it a car outside? Is it a curtain? Is it birds outside? Does anything fly in front of the window where light coming in? There's a lot of variables that we have to account for. And I think that's where you have to start first. You have to eliminate the physical variables that can cause that in that experience before you start saying, well, maybe we should measure something. Because, and again, I'm not dismissing the question at all. It's just, there's a lot more that has to be done before you say, what can we measure?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
If I can, and sorry, Dave, because
go ahead.
If I don't say this, if you go back to Einstein and you think about theory of relativity, right? Einstein had this crazy theory, but he made a prediction based on his theory. If there is a solar eclipse, we should be able to see light. And so that's part of the hypothesis process. You have to make a prediction about your shadow person. That's also called a claim. And then you have to specifically set up experiments surrounding your specific claim. If you're just searching for shadow people, you're going to find shadow people everywhere. Right. And they won't actually be shadow people. But you need to target specific claims. If you can prove one shadow person, well, you've proved shadow people, right? So don't go after multiple, like the concept of shadow people. Start off with specific claims about specific places at specific times. Also, final thing, I think sometimes in the paranormal world, we sometimes put the cart before the horse. And what I mean by that is you may hear a question like, oh, we should do an experiment to figure out how accurate this person is with their psychic abilities. Well, my brother in Christ, we don't even know if psychic abilities are real yet. Start there, right? Like start there first, and then we can start talking about accuracy. And is this a case of that? Like, do we need to actually sit down and think like, oh, maybe we should have experiments to even talk about, is an incorporeal being even possible? Like, I think like there's things that we need to do first before we start answering, or we'll even be able to answer.
We can have a long discussion on the data that's out there for the evidence of psi.
I know. I knew you would get upset with me with that, but
no, I'm not upset. I'm just saying we can have a long discussion on that.
I hope you get my point.
No, I get
right?
Like it's a point well taken. It's a good
psi
point.
exists before you can talk about how accurate people are with psi.
Yeah. Yeah. So the final comment on that is I think if it was a standard held in any other scientific discipline, it would be established that it occurs. Under what conditions and how, nobody knows. There could be alternative explanations too. There could be cueing, subliminal messaging. I mean, there's other things that could be going on, but the data is there that shows that something's going on. So that we'll have a discussion on that another time. I think for me,
just because you don't know something, it doesn't mean that it's evidence for your hypothesis.
That's true, but you also should not be applying different standards to different fields.
That's not true, because remember what I said about basic particle physics? That's harder. Yeah, it's harder to prove basic particle physics than it is psi.
That's true. That's true. All right. So moving on. Anyway, shadow figure. Back to that. I mean, for me, one of the things to measure, and I agree with everything that's been said, but I think there's a way you could measure if it's a objective or subjective experience. Are you hallucinating it, or is there something objectively in the environment that changed? Is it truly a shadow? I mean, you obviously can look at, there's devices, you can look at the light intensity, you can see if it changes, you can look at the colors, you can do color pixelation analysis. You could also have sensors in that area to see if anything changed in the environment. So I think there's ways you could look at it. Was it objective or subjective? And I mean, if everything in the environment shows that there is no change in light levels, for example, then I would start thinking, okay, it was probably maybe something more subjective. However, then you get to the point of what is going on around or with the person and the environment around the person that could be causing this subjective type of experience. So that's the only thing I would add to what everybody else said.
Well, I want to add, because you guys have hit around it, and Jon in the comments kind of mentioned it as well. You have to define first. So what we have in psychology is, and I think it's probably crosses over to everything else, is what I always heard in school or university, whatever, was operational definition. And so when someone says, I saw a shadow person, like the first thing I need to know is, I want you to operationally define what a shadow person is to me. It doesn't mean that it has to have physical attributes, but it could also just mean, this is what I saw, this is how I saw it. So an operational definition is basically a way to define, even if it's a concept, that the two people that are discussing this concept are meeting on the same terms. So I have my vision of what a shadow person might be. And if we don't say what we're seeing and thinking about when we're talking about shadow people, then we could be completely off base, missing each other's conversation. So starting out with shadow person, I want you to tell me operationally what a shadow person is. Like, what do you see? What is it? What do you think it's made of? How do you think it gets here? Like, let's understand each other with what we're talking about first, and then you can get on the next page. Other than that, I agree with everybody else.
I just got to say, I laughed because you said operational definition, and all I can think of was you asking, Mr. Zaffis, by what mechanism is an object possessed? And then him going,
Yeah,
Just turns around, walks away.
he walks away from me, but that's
funny.
I know he's still
You
mad
got
about
silently bickered.
that was not even a question. I'm not questioning if it is true or not. I just want to know, like, what are we talking about when something is attached? Like, you tell me when you say attached. I need to understand when you say attached, what does attached mean?
Right.
Glued, spiritual, then help me understand what spiritual glue is. Emotional, tell me what emotional glue, like, how is it attached? Like, give me the mechanism of its attachment. Then once we understand that, then we can further the conversation on a level playing field. I thought maybe he meant, yeah. I was like, was he going to go in the back and get something to show me? So I waited there a few minutes and he never I stood there. I was like, I think
he's like, I got to leave now, I guess. I don't know.
What are you doing, Tim? I'm waiting.
Oh,
I think
he's
he
not
went to
coming
go
back.
get a haunted. Yeah. Kitty was like, he's not coming back.
All right. Okay. All right. Shameless plug time. Jon, go.
You can find me here. I'm just gonna, has anyone ever just like straight posted a link? There you go. Follow me on all the socials. So I created my social media so I could eventually start giving presentations. Instead, I've been giving so many damn presentations, I haven't had time to do anything with my social nonsense, but I'm almost out of my speaker circuit, so I'll have more time. So October 7th, I'm at the Charlotte, North Carolina Library. We're going to talk about skeptical ghost hunting. October 10th through 12th, I've been invited to a Haunted Travels weekend with Sam Baltrusis. So that is a conference for psychics who are trying to learn how to be psychics. And he wanted me to show up to talk about critical thinking. So I'm going to have a blast there. So October 18th, I'll be hanging out with old Kenny and Tim here at the West Virginia Skeptic Camp. Wednesday, October 22nd, I'm going to be at the Weekend Reason Conference, where I'm also talking about ghost hunting and skepticism. Sometime between March and April, I just forgot the name of the conference. There's another ghost hunting conference I'll be at in South Carolina, and I've been invited to Dragon Con next year. That's all I got going on.
I got a question that I'm writing it down because I think it's a valid question.
All questions are valid questions, Tim.
Well, Let me ask first. Do psychics really need conferences?
So I've had conversations. Like I've actually talked to Sam in particular. I was like, what do you think about like when someone says, bet you didn't see COVID coming? And so I understand like what he says in his perspective. He's like, that's not quite how psychic abilities work, which my always follow-up questions, well, how do they work? And then it kind of, goes in certain directions from there. But I get the sentiment. I also don't know how much good those kinds of statements does to people who actually believe in psychic abilities, which is why I always go back to asking questions.
Okay. All right, Kenny, what you got going on?
Oh, I got a bunch of stuff. So September 13th, if anyone's in the Buffalo area, I will be on Grand Island for the Haunted Market. I'm not selling anything. It's a big kind of Halloween themed craft sale. My wife will be there, but I'll be hanging around, actually getting like tarot readings and stuff like that, seeing what's going on because they have a few of those there. But after that, September 24th, I'm doing a webinar for the Rocky Mountain Atheists. I don't know what I'm talking about. I forget what I'm talking about, but I know I'm gonna do a thing for them. I know the public. And then October 10th, I will be in Indiana, Pennsylvania for the Historical Society there, doing a presentation on ghost hunting equipment, the gadgets. I'm going to be talking about the claims that are made about the gadgets and then going into the science behind them and mostly why they don't work the way they're promoted. October, what is this? 18th. I can't even read my own phone now. October 18th, I'll be in West Virginia with Jon and Tim for the West Virginia Skeptic Society first annual Skeptic Camp. So I'm looking forward to that. There is what else? In October, I'm doing 2 of our Skeptical Inquirer Presents podcasts, which is a live stream that we do. I'll be doing one on the 16th, which is going to feature Daniel Reed, who's one of our contributing editors. He's going to be talking about Stranger Things, the TV show and how it relates to science and skepticism and stuff like that. And then on the 30th, I'm going to have Megan and Paige from the Spooky Science Sisters, because they did put a new book out called Spooky Science. We're going to be, they're going to do a presentation. It's going to be a fun kind of Halloween themed presentation. I think it's on vampires and werewolves. So it's going to be fun. And then what else? November. Oh, wait, there's something else.
Did you say that it's going to be a live podcast that you're hosting?
It's a live stream. Yeah. So Skeptical Inquirer does a monthly, actually it's like bi-weekly presentation thing where you can get on. It's via Zoom, so you can't interact like you do here, but it's a presentation that they give, and I'm just hosting. So I come on in the beginning, I turn it over to the guest, they do a presentation, and then I come on at the end and just ask them the viewer questions. So I don't get to do my regular show stuff. And then I just got asked to do a October 20th, I'll be doing an interview with the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I'm going to do it's an hour-long talk about Halloween and ghost hunting and stuff like that. And then the 27th, I'm going to be doing another Skeptic Camp from oh my gosh, where is it? It's in Canada. I'm not actually going. I'm going to do it via Zoom, but it's going to be in Alberta, Canada. So they just asked me yesterday to present, and I'm going to do a presentation. I don't know what I'm doing, so lots to do. And there you go. Now I'll pass it off.
So, Tim, besides playing the role of Statler and Waldorf to harass Kenny during his talks,
yes,
what are you up to?
I am going to hang out with 3/4 of this crew on screen in October. Other than that, once a month I do a fun podcast. Jesus, this is so. This isn't raw milk like you thought. This is
that's good.
That's coffee with that much Irish cream in it.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
It's getting good. So I do a podcast once a month with these two up top, and it's fun. I have a good time.
Cool.
I hear we're going to be doing an investigation with AI in West Virginia, Tim. Is this still
I hope
true?
so.
Ooh.
I hope so.
You know-
We kind of dropped that idea when we had ChatGPT on as a guest.
Nice.
I got Coleman Watts interested, so
I think for next year with this Gettysburg Symposium, if they are serious about a skeptic track, might be fun.
Yeah.
For maybe we all of us get in on some kind of track like that. Maybe not a skeptic track per se, but a more
we'll have to think about that. We'd probably have to write an abstract for the four of us to
right.
And they actually, even like right now, even though they don't have a separate track, they have a category skepticism, and that's the one I applied to.
Okay.
So
Cool.
Good.
All
right. I got nothing right now. Just busy with new jobs and at some point moving to Atlanta, Georgia. So that'll keep me busy for a while. There might be a new podcast with some other people that I'll be announcing, maybe kind of, sort of, but don't have it worked out yet. We're in the initial stages of that. It's going to be fun, and if it goes through, it's going to be great. So I'll have more about that later.
So me and Kenny get to jump on your podcast and be the grumpy old.
yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
You guys,
I tried to pitch
note
to
to self, keep them out.
I met Celestia Ward over the weekend, and I tried to picture the idea now that Pascal has stepped away from Squaring the Strange. Is like, do you need another guy that dresses like a ghost hunter with a beard? I'm your guy. So pitched her the idea. Think she shot it down, but I bet she's interested. So I might be the third member.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good luck.
All right.
I won't be.
So let's say who's up next. I am off the hook officially. Thank God. Tim, you're up.
I'm up.
So let's see, that first Wednesday in October, which means we'll get it. The topic, the first Tuesday of October?
Yes.
First Wednesday of October.
Wednesday morning. Throw some shit together, guys. We're on tonight.
Yeah.
So are we going to do it on October 1st? Is that that's
Fine with
the
me.
first Wednesday?
Let me get back
I'm
to
good
you.
with
'Cause
that.
I might be in Costa Rica for a meeting for my new job, but
Oh, how horrible! Oh,
I know it'd be
your
horrible.
poor job. I'm
I know
telling
it's
you.
horrible.
Do the podcast from the beach. Should be fun.
There you go.
There you
Cool.
go.
All right. Anyway, initial plan, we'll be back the first Wednesday of October. Until then, everybody take care. Thanks for listening. Have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you soon.
Don't for chance, don't for chance, don't for chance. With the real, this what the need. With the real, what is real. Don't question me. Dave is about, Dave is out, Dave is about. Those everyone, I'm on TV. Don't for chance, don't for chance, don't for chance, don't for chance. And what you say, we'll get together.